All right, I'm gonna try this again.
What about now?
Oh yeah, it works. Holy crap. If
Yeah, hold on. I gotta find something to prop my phone up.
you walk too far, you'll probably lose your connection again.
Here, I can stay right here. Hold on. All right, can you see me?
Yeah, what are you doing in Costa Rica anyway?
Escaping COVID from America.
How long you gonna stay there?
3 weeks total, so I got another week. I'm thinking about extending it, but we'll see. We'll see.
Was it
But
was it pretty affordable to go out there?
that's more affordable than the U.S. So more affordable than Seattle, anyways. You
Yeah.
know, Seattle, everything's expensive, but man, they shut me down. They shut my gym down. What? It's almost been 3 weeks ago, and I was like, well, I could sit on the couch and do nothing, or make it worthwhile and get some work done. So I got on a plane and figured I'd come out here, going to school, screenwriting, trying to make that movie, just trying to be productive in with everything that's going on.
See, in Oklahoma, they're not doing anything. They're training the same way they always were, these people.
Oh no, man. So we got shut down in like March, and then we were able to have outdoor classes throughout the summer, and then we reopened finally September 1st. Things were going great, and then right out of the blue, one weekend they said, "Yep, we're going to shut it down again because cases were rising." And I'm like, "Not this shit again!" So got on a plane. No, that's exactly how it went down. It happened on Sunday. I flew out on Saturday, the following Saturday.
So, what about the movie and stuff? How's that coming along?
It's going on. So I'm working with this producer writer pair. One they're repped, so they read my script. They liked it, but there was some changes they wanted to make, and they're pretty extensive. They asked for a page one rewrite. So I was like, you know what? Okay, that's going to take some time. So that's why I'm here. For the last 2 weeks, I've been doing the rewrite. Just finished it, so sent that out yesterday actually. So fingers crossed, and we're still trying to make it happen.
So, what was the update on that as far as getting it done and all that?
It's all about just how, I mean, a person's life, be it mine or anybody, really. I mean, you can't tell a person's entire life in 2 hours or 90 minutes, right? So it's about condensing it and telling it in the most interesting way possible. And basically, they wanted to condense it to a point where there's important backstory, but we focus solely on Japan because that's the experience that sets it apart. So Ryan, meaning the main character, we start where Ryan arrives into Japan, and then we pick up from there, and then you have to make obviously storyline choices to because it's a movie, but it's how do you tell that best? And through a lot of meetings and discussion with the producer and the writer, we came up with a way that we think that really really tells a story in a way that an audience can connect with. So you know, now it's trying to
Right.
raise the money to happen.
Yeah, but as you're writing a screenplay, like who's working with you on this, or is it just you, or how does that work?
At the beginning, it was just me. At the beginning, it was just me, but generally speaking, being very generic, but you start putting feelers out there, you start sending your script off, or you can't send the entire script. You send, it's called a one sheet. So you send a one sheet and you see who you can get interested. You obviously want to attach talent, an actor to play the main roles or, the secondary roles or whatnot. Or you're trying to get a director, you're trying to get other writers interested that can help you, carry the story further. So I met this writer producer pair, and that's where I'm at right now. We did the rewrite, and now it's trying to attach talent, trying to find the money to actually put it into development and ultimately produce it.
So you know, maybe talk about like besides the movie, like your gym. How are you progressing with that in Seattle?
Jim's doing really well, man. Was off to a slow start because Seattle's not the Midwest, man. Like even like if you're shopping for a house, and you can get a hole in the wall for $500,000. So it's just shoestring budget start and just grassroots growing slowly. But we're finally growing to the point where we're like, okay, this is going to work. Strong base of students that are really supportive of each other. A few that want to, they have aspirations of competing professionally, but the majority, they're there to just train, get in shape, and have fun doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's a different experience than what you were doing in Japan, less where you were competing versus just teaching.
it's a really different experience because the majority of my training in Japan was not at a gym. You've seen it. It was all professionals only. If you weren't the media, they weren't there, right?
Hmm.
So it's definitely a different environment because now I have people that want to compete, but they're training alongside the general public, right? And we're all just training together, pushing each other to get better. Um, so I have to have a mixture of that instructor slash coach element because they're two different things, and I didn't really realize that until I retired and wanted to make a career out of coaching or being an instructor rather.
So have you been following like some of these events and stuff still, or?
I have, man. I watch the UFC every weekend, or usually when it's on. I woke up this morning and watched the event from last night. There's a guy from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm from, that's doing really, really well. I think what's his name, Jameel Hill, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he trained out of a rival gym of mine when I was teaching out of Michigan. But man, he looked really well in the co-main event, and he knocked out OSP. So he finally put Grand Rapids on the map. That's awesome to see.
Yeah, because I think probably maybe it's the first guy to fight out there since you, perhaps.
We've had a couple others, like Tony Ferguson. He's from Muskegon, which is an hour away. Then I want to say there was one more, but that really is getting this far and co-main event slot. Yeah, the far and few between.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Cody Stamen too. He's from Grand Rapids area.
Yeah, yeah, Cody Stammen.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he's tough. He moved out to Vegas to make it happen, and obviously Kevin Lee as well. He's from Detroit, but he went to college at Grand Valley State University, so he was in Grand Rapids for a while too, training.
I don't know, maybe like kind of waiting for people to join in here, but maybe we could talk about, stuff people don't really necessarily know about as far as like when you first started training in Japan, maybe how you ended up over there, perhaps.
How I ended up over there? Okay, yeah, I can get into that. So basically, man, I was doing kung fu, believe it or not, and judo. And my judo coach is from Hong Kong. His father was the Hong Kong judo team's Olympic coach, well, the coach for the Hong Kong's Olympic team. And I always heard stories about obviously the strength of Japanese judo, but I had never experienced it for myself. So when I got the opportunity to study abroad in my last year of high school, I went over there and I actually ended up getting my black belt in judo in Japan. That was really my first experience training in Japan. And then obviously I had MMA aspirations, which wasn't even called MMA at the time, but we had Shuto, and Shuto was the organization that was even the USC's predecessor. So I found an official Shuto gym, joined, and the rest was history.
Yeah,
Back
so you got
then,
people kind of joining in here. If you guys have any questions for Ryan, you can kind of just type them in here and I'll try to read them. But um, maybe talk about like the first judo gym you joined, perhaps.
okay, the
And what
first the
that
first
experience
gym that
was.
was Shooting Gym Yokohama. It was run by Kawaguchi Kenji, or Kenji Kawaguchi. He was the heavyweight Shuto champion at the time, and he would go on to lose that title to Eric Paulson. So, for those of you in the U.S. that aren't familiar with Kawaguchi-san, but man, Kawaguchi was a great coach, and he went on to train many champions like Mamoru or Lion Takeshi. But I got my start there at Shooting Gym Yokohama, and then Ensign was the heavyweight champion at the time, Ensign Inoue. And Kawaguchi said, Ensign's going to come do a seminar here in Yokohama. You want to go? And I didn't know much about the sport at the time. And I said, yeah. And I did an Ensign Inoue seminar. That's the first time I met Ensign back in like 98, it had to be. And that kind of just put the bug in my ear with what Ensign had going on in Japan. And then as time would go on, obviously I would work for Ensign with alongside, you know, Kid Yamamoto with Purebred Tokyo and whatnot. But Ensign's gym was also an official gym. So our paths crossed all the time, be it at amateur Shuto events or professional Shuto events, because Purebred Omiya was an official gym. Then we had Shooting Gym Yokohama. There were other official gyms. And this isn't something that is really a thing nowadays. The official Shuto gyms, if they're, I don't want to say they're totally phased out, but they're not as big as they used to be today. As far as the necessity to go through one of the official sports gyms or the company's gyms.
So maybe like talk about, see, because I'm trying to wait for some people to ask some questions here.
Take your
Maybe
time.
Gabe, if you have a question, or Miles, if you have any questions about Japan. But maybe talk about, just perhaps like some of the people you trained with maybe at first, or maybe some of
Well,
the notable people or things you remember about that.
notable people, I think, as far as the Western audience is concerned, fast forward a couple years, some of the better fighters in Japan were getting together to train together to, you know, just to get better. And because we didn't have coaches in the sense that there are today, right? There weren't teams with like a jiu-jitsu coach and a boxing coach, a Thai coach. You just had one central coach. So in an effort to get better, we had, Tsuyoshi Kosaka started G Square. And Todd, I know you've been there as well, just watching. And it's where all of us would come together and train. So you had Nakamura Kazu, he's a former UFC fighter, who beat Randleman back in the day. Yoshida Hideko, former Olympic gold medalist rather. You had Pseudo Genki. You had, man, the who's who in Japan was basically coming together just to get better, you know, just to, put Japanese MMA on the map and just to get better. So we were all just training together.
Hmm. Yeah, there's some more people jumping in here now. If you guys have any questions for Ryan, that's kind of why I do these lives, so you guys can ask some questions of him. Um, when you were training at G Square,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I know you had talked about like Takasi and some of these guys. Maybe like, what are your remembrances of some of these guys as far as their skill levels or technique? Or
So as far as the Wajitsuke Shukai guys, that's like Kaoru Uno, Takase Daiju. Later on, there was Okami Yushin, right? All these guys I trained with for years, but not at G Square. That was I went over to their gym, and man, talk about just grassroots, strong guys in a room. Some names, some with not a name that you wouldn't know, but man, these guys are all great grapplers. And Takase, probably known as the best grappler in Japan, and he was smashing everybody in straight grappling rules, and myself included in training. And like I said, Uno was there, Urushitani was there. Man, there's so many names that are well known in Japan, but not necessarily in the U.S. But training alongside these guys, man, it was really, really beneficial. Um, I actually asked Kaoru Uno one time, more recently on a trip back to Japan. I was like, what's the basis of Keisukai's grappling? And, and
Hmm.
how that to jiu-jitsu as we know, Brazilian jiu-jitsu as we know it today. And he was telling me that, it's a judo base, but this a similar judo base that Maeda brought to Brazil, but before the Brazilian influence. And you could still see a lot of these similar guard players, a lot of these similar techniques. And man, I said, they were tough.
Now, Miles asked, Miles, I believe judo is still an Olympic sport, but that's what he was asking, if judo is still an Olympic sport or not.
Yep, judo has been an Olympic sport since 1925, I believe, and it's still an Olympic
Yeah.
sport. And talk about some of the best athletes in the world. We always talk about judo versus jiu-jitsu, but in terms of how competitive judo is as a sport, and how competitive Brazilian jiu-jitsu is as a sport, judo's just, man, it's the second most popular Olympic sport to my knowledge. So just getting to the Olympics versus getting to the mundials or getting to the jiu-jitsu world championships, it's night and day. It's a lot more competitive. So when you see these Olympic champions, not that they evolve into becoming great MMA fighters, but in the realm of judo and straight grappling, they're monsters, man.
Let's talk about Monier, because I invited some other podcasters here, and you trained with Monier Lazez, and I remember kind of seeing some video of him maybe 2015, 2016 on one of
Yeah,
your social medias, and I remember asking you then, why has no one picked this guy up? So maybe talk about Monier Lazez, and
I
because I
told
that.
I told you you're going to see this guy in the UFC, and like 6 months later, there he was knocking somebody out, or okay, Munir and I go back to, let's say, 2014ish, when I um, moved out to Dubai to work at Team Nagara Dubai. And so Munir and my relationship we were co-workers. He was the Muay Thai coach at the gym. I was the MMA coach. And then Munir was, also fighting. So I was the head coach of the professional fight team. And Munir was one of the fighters. He was, man, and I knew from his first fight that I was watching something special in the making. And so Munir signed with Desert Force, yes, Desert Force, and to fight for their title in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And Todd, I know you grew up in Saudi, but I'd
Yeah.
never been. I didn't know anything about going to Saudi, but we were off to Saudi Arabia, and it was interesting because this is the first time I was going to corner Munir. We went there, and oh man, Saudis were everybody was super nice. I had a great experience in Saudi Arabia, man. And I can't say enough good things about the country. Everybody was just they loved MMA, and that's all I asked for, right? And on the day of the event, I saw something special in Munir because the event was being broadcast in like 16 different countries, maybe
Hmm.
more, and they lost their pay-per-view feed. The lights in the arena went out, and we were just on hold, like, so they had to cancel a few fights, or they had to shuffle the fight card to get the most important fights on the pay-per-view when it would return. So we're in the locker room waiting, and the lights are out, and they're trying to fix it, and then the guy comes in and says, okay, come, you're going on now. The pay-per-view got fixed, and they're like, they're ready to throw Munir in the ring, and so they put us like cage side, and we're just waiting, and this, so our warm-up got cut in half, and we're standing in the middle of the arena amongst the crowd, essentially. And his focus never wavered, not even a little bit. And then they say, okay, now get in the cage. And we're like, what now? No walkout? No what? Okay.
Yeah.
He put in the cage. And then in the first round, he blocked a kick with his left hand and he broke his arm. And after the first round was over, we were talking to him. He didn't, man, he knew it was hurt, but he walked out round two, won by knockout with a broke arm. Didn't worry about it until after the fight was broken or after the fight was over. Got his hand raised, and then we had to go find the doctor, which was difficult in itself because again we're in Saudi Arabia. We haven't been there. We don't know where anything is. So we chased down the doctor. He had his hand wrapped, and I think that's why you saw him in the UFC just this year, because it would take 2 years for his arm to heal with multiple surgeries. And now he's finally healthy, and the world is able to see what he's capable of. You know,
Yeah, he kind of had mixed, stand up with takedowns too. I mean, were you kind of surprised to see that from him?
I wasn't. No, I think America traditionally was 25 years or so late into getting into Muay Thai. Obviously, boxing's another story, wrestling's another story, but in the form of kickboxing, Thai boxing, the rest of the world has kind of had a head start. So Dubai, and Munir had, he's had years of kickboxing even prior to moving to Dubai himself. But Dubai is known for having a lot of great kickboxers. And so he was trained, like, for example, I think Gokhan Saki, he used to train with him. And Gokhan Saki is one of the best kickboxers ever, right?
Hmm.
Trained with all these monsters. So I was used to seeing a high level of kickboxing. I knew that if Munir got to the UFC, if they were going to stand and bang with him, he could rely on his skill set and do very, very well.
You're talking about the Muay Thai and America's exposure to it. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder what you thought about, now one is getting a lot of these Thais that are,
Mm-hmm.
training straight, in the Thai gyms.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that's going to change things at all? Or
You know what? That's interesting. Ensign actually kind of had the foresight to see that 15 years ago, because we were going over when I was working for Ensign, we were going over and training at Santian Noise Camp, and and they had all these young boys, right? And Ensign's like, what if we train these guys in MMA? What if these 8-year-old kids crossed over into MMA? So he kind of had that vision back then, and I think it was way too early at the time. But now we're seeing that, like you said, in one. Um, One is a different beast altogether. I think I remember watching it live once, and the one thing that I thought was one kickboxing,
hmm.
like they're far superior, right? Because they're bringing over these former Thai champions that have kickboxed their whole life,
Hmm.
but they have and continue. They don't have the wrestling, right? Even jujitsu, they don't have the caliber of jiu-jitsu that we do here in the U.S. Um, so you get guys like Ben Askren and other fighters going over there. They're going to have an advantage if they can force the fight to the ground. In the lighter weights on the feet, though, it's not even comparable. It's not
Yeah,
even comparable.
especially with some of these females that they have that I've seen.
I haven't seen too many of the females. There's Angela Lee, right? But she's from
Well, they got
Hawaii.
Fairtex girls,
Hmm.
Stamp and, Wonder Girl Fairtex, that are just training exclusively at Fairtex. I guess they don't do anything but train. They don't
Wow,
have
yeah.
jobs necessarily. And they've looked pretty, superior in the stand up to everyone they're competing against.
Well, Fairtex has a long history of creating
Right,
champions, right? And they also have a long history in kind of being one of the first Thai gyms to kind of dabble in MMA.
right.
Um, so, like back in the day, you had like Jake Shields and Gilbert Melendez as well, I believe. But way back, they were training out of Fairtex in San Francisco, right? So Fairtex kind of saw MMA as the possibilities that there were in MMA way back when, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor with the fighters that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and they also have, I think DJ Jackson is over there teaching.
Oh, is he really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So I think they've dived, kind of headfirst into it. Because
I
one
think.
still has Muay Thai fights and MMA.
Hmm.
So
I'd
they
say.
have a few girls. And I think one guy, Rod Tang, he was also
No.
doing it. So they're training some people for mixed martial arts now.
When you think about Thailand and training MMA, Phuket is kind of the mecca of the MMA training there now. So Fairtex isn't in Phuket though. They have a gym in Bangkok and Pattaya.
Pattaya, yeah.
Yeah, but in Phuket you have Phuket Top Team. I trained there, loved it. You have Tiger Muay Thai. I think Shichinko. She's Shimchenko. She's done a lot of her training camps out of Tiger Muay Thai, and the two gyms are a 5 minute walk apart, right? So they have this main road. And you have everything from CrossFit, MMA, Muay Thai, healthy eating. It's really a one stop all place for MMA, and I'd say there's a lot of talent right there. They bring in wrestling coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches, and obviously the Muay Thai, boxing as well, and great training in Phuket.
Hmm. Yeah, I was kind of wondering how far you think that could go. I mean, obviously some of them are having success, but
Well,
take years to see it or
no, I think we're starting to see it now. At least I know Phuket Top Team. They've had a few guys in one championship. Tiger Muay Thai has had some fighters in the UFC. Um, it's just going to take that one person with that something special that's going to cross over and really put them on the map. But as far as talent alone, they're ready now. And there's a lot of tough people in the room every day, 7 days a week.
yeah, and what's the training like there? You said you did training there. Is it
Mm-hmm.
like several sessions a day or do they do it? How did they break it up?
It is. So I was training after I left Dubai, my wife and I moved to Thailand for 6 months. And it was just kind of a training vacation for both of us. We trained at Phuket Top Team. And there are morning and evening sessions. So basically twice a day, and then private lessons. I mean, I'm old and I don't compete anymore, but if I was, then private lessons are affordable at like $10 an hour to have a world champion Thai boxer train you. So why would you not do that in your afternoons, right? So, but usually twice a day, morning and evening, every day, 7 days a week.
How long were those sessions?
I was primarily just doing jujitsu of all things. I wasn't kickboxing. I got, torn rotator cuff. I need surgery, so I'm not doing any striking nowadays. So I was focusing on jujitsu, but jujitsu's 2 hours each section or so. Great instructor, and what's his name? Olavo. I forgot his last name, but man, an amazing coach, and I learned a lot from him.
Hmm. But the fighters, do you know how long they were doing their sessions for, how that worked for people that were strictly training for fights?
I sent a couple of the fighters from Dubai over there as well after I trained there. I went there before moving there. I went there just on a training holiday, felt it out, and then I had a few fighters go out. Um, I don't know how much they were training, but generally speaking, they're running mornings. Then they'd have their morning Muay Thai training or Jiu Jitsu training or back to back. And then they'd have private lessons in the afternoon, and they'd go back to jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai in the evenings because the facility's so big. You can do both. You can do Muay Thai usually first thing in the morning, right after your run. Then as Muay Thai finishes up, you go right into the jiu-jitsu room, take a nap, get back up, private lesson, take another nap, get back up, go back to Muay Thai, finish your Muay Thai, do jiu-jitsu again. So you're doing Muay Thai twice a day, jiu-jitsu twice a day, and no gi classes was 3 days a week, which incorporated a lot of wrestling in it. And they had a great wrestling coach in Eric Ureshk, I think his name is. He's out of San Diego working with Dominic Cruz, to the best of my knowledge right now. But man, he was out there coaching every day too. So they had a lot of talent in the room and good coaches.
Did you live on site, or do they have like their own
They do
house?
have on-site living. I had my wife there, my dog there. We got a different place a short walk away. But yeah, for young fighters going over there for the first time, you can stay at the gym. Yeah.
So, because I know like Fairtex had like their own like Fairtex hotel and patio. I don't know how that worked, but
Um,
like
Fairtex has, I mean, the it's pretty basic, but you have everything you need, right? Um, but if you shop around a little bit, you can find a place with a nice room with a pool and a little bit nicer conditions, if you will. And it's not, I think I was paying. A lot of people think this stuff is expensive, but for room and board, my wife and I had a place for $300 a month. You know what I mean? I'd kill for that now.
and how was the place?
It was nice, and my dog lived there with us too. So we had a queen size bed, shower. I mean, we didn't have a kitchen. That's the only thing we didn't have. But the place had a pool. The grounds of the hotel were really nice. We had everything we needed, and there's tons of restaurants a short walk away anyway. So
Now, what do you think you're gonna do going forward when you get back to Seattle? You think you would, continue there long term, or
it's up in there, but that's the hope, right? Um, we opened the gym with the desire to put roots down and stay there forever, and just make Seattle our home base, if you will. So going back, when the economy reopens, hopefully that happens next week, not next week, in 2 weeks or so. It's supposed to happen December 14th. So fingers crossed for that. But then come January, just back at it full swing and just keep growing the business, keep growing the gym, and keep, you know, helping people, learn MMA. That's the overall goal. But personally, I mean, at the end of the day, I do see us settling in Japan when we retire. You know, I lived there for so long; it's home. So looking at opportunities to maybe, buy a retirement home there, so that we can retire one day and just, you know, grow old.
maybe how long from now would that be?
Who knows? I mean, um, obviously retirement. So I don't know, 15 years, 10 years. I mean, if things continue to go as well as they are in Seattle, then we'll be there, you know. If not, we'll go sooner. But I'd say, at least once they cross that 50-year-old mark, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In America, it's usually 62, or yeah, it's when people can get Social Security and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to. I say retire. We always say retire, retire. What are you gonna do when you retire, right? But I don't really plan on ever retiring in the traditional sense, right? I'll always be teaching martial arts. I'll always be writing. I'll always have some type of personal project I'm working on. You know what I mean? I don't want to retire, but eventually, I would like to. We'd like to own a house in Seattle. But like I said, with the housing market is so challenging there right now, so it might just be better when we reach retirement age that Japan checks a lot of boxes and it's a great place to live. So why not?
But, how easy would it be to go back there without like teaching English and these kind of things in that sense?
In the back of my head, I mean, I'm kind of preparing for that for the distant future. So I'm in grad school actually right now for Japanese translation. So I'm working on translating official documents and stuff like that. So I'm preparing for in the event that I'm not coaching, then I'll have other opportunities.
Mhm.
And my wife is a lot smarter than I am, so she has Christians as well. She's a veterinarian, so You know, maybe she works on base as a veterinarian. Maybe
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that is true. Never thought about that, but
it's
that's definitely possibilities for sure.
always, yeah, there's always possibilities. Just got to look for them. And
Yep. Yeah, man. Well, let's see here. So, did you watch my interview with Ensign where he's training
didn't get it.
Sidario?
And I wish I really wanted to see that one too. Send me a link to it.
Yeah, I think I was telling, I think it's kind of gone over people's heads, at least American media people, that Ensign hasn't trained a man for MMA probably for 15 years, 14,
Wow.
15 years, you know. He's been training Sarah, his girlfriend, but
Right.
this guy Sudario, he hasn't trained someone to that extent
Yeah.
since
Oh, wow.
Yamamoto, probably.
We haven't seen much from Ensign. Yeah. I can't believe it's been that long, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
probably
I was just telling I was kind of found it interesting that nobody picked up on that. I guess people in Japan had, but he said this guy's got, he's kind of like a bigger version of Nori, just
oh, wow.
more
That's
style. Yeah.
itself. Okay. I haven't seen him fight yet, but he's fighting Minoaman, isn't he?
Yeah, but they took out a lot of the rules. Apparently, Manoa didn't want to have knees on the ground or foot stomps or any of that kind of stuff. He had that all taken out. So
Oh, okay. When is this fight going to happen?
New Year's Eve.
That'll be interesting. Okay. I'll have to tune in.
So yeah. So I'll send that to you.
Please do. Yeah.
And I appreciate you taking the time. I know you said you didn't have maybe 30 minutes or whatever, but
No, well, I apologize for not getting it to work
no,
though.
no, it's quite all right.
But man, we did it. It's been fun. I appreciate it, man, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
For sure, man, for sure. You'll have to keep me updated on the movie and stuff.
All right, we'll do.
All right. Take care, man.
Later.
All right, yep.